Well, hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Joanne. I hope you are all doing well. Welcome. It's Sunday night. The 27th of March in Melbourne. It's a beautiful, clear night. It's a bit warm. I've got no sleeves on. Hello, Rufus. How are you? And having, I've got my little portable fan and sitting here, and thought I'd come on and say hello to everybody. Haven't been on for a while. Talk about some stuff that's happened, and So what has been going on today? I mean, what has been going on in the last few days? I feel like I take a few days away and a whole pile of things happen. So there's still no election being called. Hello, the Fox. So we're still having an election called, although I was reading today that the speculation is that it will be called after the budget, and that they're going to give everybody money and then call the election so that everyone thinks about the money. Lots of things have been happening. Taylor Hawkins, yes, I heard about that. And Taylor Hawkins, isn't it alleged that there was 10 different types of drugs in the system? That's pretty scary. That's what I read has been reported, yes. So it's at the end. We have to go to the polls in 50 days. Yes, we have to go to the polls in 50 days. In fact, he's got nearly at the stage where he can't delay calling that any longer. Rufus says some of them were prescription. I think some of them were prescription, yes. That's a lot in the system. He was 50, wasn't he? Like, there's so many people at the moment passing away in their 50s. That's really quite scary, in fact. Isn't it? Just Free Fighter stream last night, did you, Rufus? Cool. Is that on Facebook? Medication, alcohol can triple the effect. Yeah. I mean, that's why they tell you not to drink alcohol with medication, because of the effect that it can have. But I've been catching up on some YouTube videos with all the drama that's going on. Very, very interesting. And it is alleged that there is actually another that our favorite YouTuber has ignored some cease and desists. So that's what a couple of people are saying, that there were some cease and desists issued, and they've been ignored. But someone's been going hard today, and now bringing Hillsong into the whole thing. I mean, I know that they've got their issues, but actually there was something I was going to check, because I am certain there's misinformation again. I'm certain. Because according to our favorite YouTuber, she was stating that Hillsong was founded by Frank Houston, and when it actually was founded by Brian Houston. I mean, that is a big... Let me just show you this. Who would be doing silly things like that? Okay. Now, this is what she says. This is what she says. And this is where she's got to be very, very careful. And she goes, Hillsong covered up the SA of children. Their founder is a pedophile. His son is an alleged SA. Both men are disgraced and removed by the church. And then she says, Shekinah Church praised Hillsong this week. Hillsong is a cult and protects sexual predators, period. To all the victims, I see you believe it. Now, I've just gone to Hillsong Church, their fact sheet. Now, it was founded in 1983 by pastors Brian and Bobby Houston. So for her to say that the founders are pedophile, or P, is incorrect, because Brian Houston, no, is not. Okay? His father is the one that was the one that has issues. All right? Wow, they're around a few places, aren't they? So it was founded in 1983 by pastors Brian and Bobby Houston. This information is incorrect. This information is incorrect. What happened was that there were allegations of his father, Frank. And that came out in the Royal Commission. What it was found at the Royal Commission was that Brian covered up the allegation and did nothing about it. He went to the church board, and allegedly that he asked his father to resign from the church, or it all came out after his father retired or something. But his father had nothing to do. His father had nothing to do with the start of Hillsong. So for Katie Joy to state that the founder of Hillsong is what she said is actually factually incorrect. Factually incorrect. Now, the other thing, so that is what he's facing court for, not reporting it to the police. That is what he has to face court for. The other allegations that came out this last week were inappropriate behavior. And again, we don't know what happened because neither woman has come out and said this is what happened. Again, it's just allegations. But as I said, he has been charged with not reporting a crime against children. But I get really, 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 really annoyed at Katie Joy for misreporting information. Because I looked at that and I went, no, his father was either retired or he had to retire. All right. So Frank Houston, his father died in 2004, and he was the head of the Assemblies of God Church in New Zealand and until the 70s, and Brian was the head of the Australian version until 2009. Frank was accused of SA 9 boys, and the 2015 Royal Commission found Brian had failed to report his father's abuse to police. This is what the issue is. So one of Frank's victims has since waived his anonymity, and he constantly questions why Brian failed to alert the police when Frank Houston actually admitted to it. He confessed. So this is an article, and it says, this was back in 2019 when ScoMo opened up. He was the Prime Minister of our country on stage with Brian Houston, who's currently under investigation for concealing crimes of his father. So remember, we know that Houston has been Morrison's spiritual advisor. So in an interview with Judy and hello, Bo. Okay, so he said that he's saying the victim did not want the police informed at the time, the church leader, when he found out. So he said, and yeah, but the victim denied that. As I said, in 1999, the National Executive Assemblies of God decided that Frank Houston's credentials would be withdrawn. Houston confronted his father in November 1999 and suspended his father from preaching. But evidence given to the commission showed Frank Houston was allowed to resign from his position in the church in 2000 and retire with financial support from the church without damaging his reputation. So it's interesting. So although so Brian founded Hillsong, but his father was still preaching there. So, and it says that they found the slip. So anyway, what I'm saying is that Katie Joy's statement that the founder of Hillsong is a pedo is incorrect, because he was the father of the founder of Hillsong. So this is actually incorrect. And I feel that I have to correct it, because if you're going to call out things, you need to make sure that it's correct. She always gets things messed up. So, yeah. So I need to correct that. All right. So yeah, so she's starting to, she went on a Hillsong, she went on a Hillsong rant today. It was all about Hillsong. And I can tell you now, they won't hesitate in sending her a cease and desist either. So here she's talking about in 2020 when Carl Lentz was unfaithful to his wife, that scandal. And, and then she has this fascination with SA. And then she says Brian Houston fired Lentz for immoral behavior and accused him of narcissistic behavior. Brian Houston was charged with allegedly covering up his father's repeated SA of a child. at least 8 men have come forward accusing Brian's father of this. Well, we know there's 9 that we know of. Brian Houston stepped down this week after news broke that he allegedly essayed multiple women in church. Hillsong blamed. As far as we know, there are 2. We know of 2. And they weren't SA. It was inappropriate behavior. We don't know. And again, she's twisting facts to suit her narrative. Hillsong capitulated the new apostolic reformation into the mainstream. They believe in the 7 mountain mandate that they must take over every facet of the world and prepare the world for Jesus' return. Isn't that what Christians do? We're preparing the world for the return of Jesus. They created a business out of church that has former members accusing the church of forced labor using church funds. Hillsong was founded by a pedo and then taken over by a son that is now accused of SA. Make sure you check out. As I said, the founder is not. The founder was Brian Houston. We went to the fact sheet. Now she's got this. As I said, she's got this big thing. Pastors who obsess over purity and their love lives of their members often have skeletons in their own closets. While church members worked for Carlton with no pay, he purchased a $15,000 hoodie, walked around shirtless with Justin Bieber. So walking around shirtless with Justin Bieber is a crime, apparently. And cheated on his wife. Hillsong is not a cult because of Carl Lentz. Lentz is one leader of many that were brought up in a system where men control everything. Accountability doesn't matter, and protecting the church at all costs is a priority. Sharing his photo for the utter hypocrisy. He showed women in the church who had did the deed outside marriage, and he publicly denounced homosexuality. So there you go. She's got this fascination. Now she's complaining that 7M's deleting videos. Now, does anyone remember around the time of the Tardy West book that videos started disappearing of hers, and she said that she privated them? I know. I think she's jealous, Rufus, because her toad's not ripped. It says they do not follow the 7 mountain mandate, which is a key aspect. However, archived versions of their website indicate that they followed. So just because you've got an archive, so apparently church can't change what they believe in. So yes. Now she's saying that many of the people that are associated with this church aren't legally married. So she cannot find a marriage license for anybody. Is that over? Why on earth would somebody be grabbing why would you be going through people's marriage licenses? Why would you be doing that? You know, is that overstepping the mark? And then she's talking about here watching the Hillsong documentary takes me back to when I got roped into NAR for a church that really modelled itself off Bethel and Hillsong. So I escaped my life and felt intoxicated by God, the exact same way this music is supposed to make you feel. We know music is used like that. This is my playlist of songs I listen to for hours. I used to put the music on and sing loudly while cooking. I learned that after 3 years that the prosperity, the riches, the faith, and all is not honest. We tithe hundreds of dollars weekly. We volunteered and even donated extra to build a church. We donated to every charity event they had. Our final straw was needing support for our family related to the needs of our son and no one helping us. We decided our lives We dedicated our lives, and in turn, they couldn't help us. Sharing our frustrations was met by the pastor saying, if you don't like it here, you can leave. We debated it for months, and all our friends were there, and you leaving, we would lose them all. Then came Sunday, our pastor said, God would bless us more and give us more if we gave him more money. We got a flyer asking us to pledge parts of our 401k so he could build a church. So anyway, she's talking about, so I'm not anti-Christian. I'm anti-churches that prey on people in their most vulnerable moments, priorities. No one should be taken advantage of. So that's what, so as I said, now I have issues here. She goes, Jeremiah and Hannah are marrying tomorrow. Can anyone see how excited Jeremiah is? They literally put this photo up. Why not to disprove of men? Why to not disprove that men in their family are gross? My opinions. So then we've got that. But yes, he is ripped. Carl Links is ripped. I mean, that's all in a weekend. All of that's appeared on the weekend. So so she's definitely got some issues. So do we think that there could be another lawsuit coming up? I know the Todd Chrisley one's due to be dealt with soon. Katie's jealous that Tony's not packed like the Duggar boy. You said that. I'm wondering if that is the case. That's what the problem is. Because why else are you fascinated by? Don't mess with Scientologists unless you really take the heat. Well, she won't touch Scientologists, apparently. Physics down under. Because other people are covering them. So, yeah, it's very... I don't think anyone here gives a... Well, that is correct, Rufus. I'm sure nobody cares about the no-named YouTube. Oh, don't say that. Don't say that. She's got a team of people. She's a team. She's got a production team now. And yeah. She's got a production team working with her now to uncover all of this. So, oh dear. I asked her on her IG if 7am Susan will be throwing her sources under the bus like once some shows to do. Oh, she blocked you, Vedandra. Yeah, well, it'll be very interesting to see whether she does. It will be very interesting to see whether who she does throw under the bus. To be honest with you, I'm very interested in that myself. So, oh, you're going to get wet in Queensland. Wow. That's pretty, it's not nice. I wouldn't mind some rain here. Yeah, but we've got warmish weather for autumn, as you can see. Yeah, it's wet in Sydney now. Yeah. So I know you're just all really keen. So thank you to Llama Girl for these amazing posts. I'll send you a screenshot on Twitter. Okay. All right. Thank you, Vedandra. I want to see that. So apparently, KJ admitted she couldn't go live for a few days after having a post removed. Is this the live that happened in Vedandra?
Hello, everyone. Hello. Hi. I wasn't able to go live on here for a few days because one of my posts got removed. But obviously, there was finally a statement made by 7M. And first of all, I just want to say, like, you know, at the end of the day, like, they have a right to feel the way that they want to feel. That doesn't negate the way that anyone else feels in this situation. And there was some weird things that they said, I think, in my opinion, that, you know, he's the pastor of the church and he's also a businessman, but they're not together and whatever. Now, some of the things that I have been sharing have come from a lawsuit that was filed back in 2009. The lawsuit involved a former member who claimed a lot of like coercion, mind control, brainwashing. Ultimately, the lawsuit failed under a couple of different issues like statute of limitations, freedom of religion, and not being able to prove some of the claims that were made. That doesn't change the fact that when the court made an order, they did find specific things to be true. And I just wanted to share a few things because I was looking at the order that was presented by court. And this is Chung versus Shin. It's a 2009. The order was filed on September 29th, 2011. And so this is actually a court record. I'm not making this up. This is
This is a court record. I'm not making this up. Really? Oh, dear me. Hello, Plan to Create. Are you any better? Plan to Create hasn't been very well. Are you better today, Plan to Create? All right. Okay, here we go.
This is finally court, the burden of proof. And some of her claims were past the 3 years of statute of limitations, and others just fell inside of the belief system of being a faithful Christian. So this was something on the 14th page of the order, after they're going through all the different gifts and like all the different things that they said, you know, no, they weren't coercive. Yes, no, this didn't happen. Or yes, she gave this money, but no, this didn't qualify as this, that kind of stuff. This is what they actually wrote. So it says, the plaintiff describes and the court finds, so this is interesting, the plaintiff describes and the court finds that Pastor Shin and Catherine Yee demanded obedience, taught on the consequences of non-obedience, instituted a family system that involved separate girls and boys housing. So this is the court finding verifiably proof that they demanded obedience, taught on the consequences of non-obedience, instituted a family system that involved separate and girls and boys housing.
So separating boys and girls housing. Sounds like a school camp. Oh, Plan to Create says we're back in hospital last night. Feeling exhausted. home now. Had a small sorry. I'm sorry to hear that, Plan to Create. I know that you had double vision the other day, so that's no good. So she's not happy. She's talking about the fact that they were separating. Anyway.
Monitored internet usage and the turning over of financial information to Miss E. So they found that they were monitoring their internet usage according to the court. That says the court finds that they monitored internet usage and turning over of financial information to Miss E. In addition, the plaintiff claims and the court finds that the plaintiff, Miss Chung, and others were subject to private and public rebukes in church, whereby Miss Chung was referred to as stupid on one occasion and another member called funky on another occasion. So publicly and privately rebuking was found on, according to the court records, filed September 29th, 2011. They said that 2 church members testified that none of these things occurred, or they were rare or overstated. And they found that.
Ugh. Oh, good. I'm glad the double vision has gone. Yes, she just goes on that Josh was allowed near girls and he wasn't monitored with the.
Public rebuking in Shekinah Church. And they found that these church members' credibility was lacking. They completely disregarded the testimony of one of these church members. It says the plaintiff testified that the plaintiff's phone and computers were monitored by the church. The court finds that Ms. Chung did not prove the installation of a monitoring system on her computer, though some evidence was offered that other church members believed that something was installed on their computers. The court finds that she did not live with these other members except for a 2 to 3 month period with Ms. E and did not share a computer with any of them. So she only lived for like 2 to 3 months, according to the court, with the church members.
Gee, I'm not underestimating that, but how many people have had their work? So many people have their work computers monitored, and particularly with their work from home stuff where they've taken work computers and work setups. Guess what's on those? They've been monitored. When I was working for a government organisation, our computers were monitored. They knew exactly what we were doing at any time.
So this is another interesting thing that I found the court found. The court finds that the more loyal church members were expected to absolutely obey the teachings of the church, and that other church members were subject to public rebuking in Shekinah Church. The court also finds that the plaintiff did not receive donation receipts, but finds that the plaintiff never asked for receipts. The court also finds that the allegation of the plaintiff's phone uses monitoring by the church pre-signed checks. The court also finds that the allegation of plaintiff's phone usage monitoring by the church pre-signed checks and obedience systems were not major factors in her giving motivation. So even though they were monitoring her phones and she did pre-sign checks and she did follow an obedience system, they said that those weren't her primary motivations.
And again, work's paying the bill. They're going to want to know what you're using your calls on. I know, there's sometimes I feel like it just seems that she's so naive or so disconnected from the real life. The real life. There's no, because she wouldn't be making a big song and dance about that if she knew that that's what happens with work computers. If I use the computer at the church, it's, you know, I've got to expect that it's going to be monitored. If I take a church computer home, it's going to be monitored. Hello? And obviously, her son's not had a school computer because the school computers are monitored too, and they have blocks on them. Some school computers are blocked for YouTube, for example. So anyway, you know, the monitoring of computers and that is part of everyday society these days. The fox says, I know animals no more. So for me, she's showing how out of touch she is with reality, because, you know, and there are some computers that don't allow you to access certain pages or certain sites because that's what they do. Again, education facilities have blocks on certain locations. And certain sites, you can't connect to their... Thanks, Vidandra. I'll have a look in a minute. You know, certain... yeah, I can see everything that everyone does all on the computer at work. On here too. That's right. So, you know, that's my point. She's making this big song and dance about what was in this court thing in 2011, but it is such a part of society now. That, yeah, she's showing how ignorant she is. Oh, look, I know that there were blocks on when my kids were at school on certain things, and they got, all the kids got around them. They all got around them. Oh no, my fan just died. I need to plug it in to charge it up. Yeah. So yeah, they got around it.
So at the end of the day, she did not win, but it seems like the court found some of what she said to be true. And it still is, again, kind of that idea that pre-signing checks, and I feel like these groups are so good at this in that they don't... Okay. They said there was insufficient evidence that she was brainwashed. Or that any physical duress had been taken, or that she was kidnapped, or that she was deprogrammed.
Deprogrammed? Okay.
Was outside the norm for clergy.
All right, here we go.
They said the court finds the defendant's behavior was outside the norm for clergy, and that some of the conduct complained of could be considered to be manipulative and for the self-interest of persons involved in the church. The court also finds that Robert Shin and Catherine Yee acted in concert in connection with their church activities, and that Shekinah Church has practices that bordered on coercion. So they say that they couldn't conclusively prove that she was brainwashed. I told you that that's super hard to prove. But they did say that his behavior was outside of the norm of clergy. It was considered manipulative and for the self-interest. They said the court finds the defendant, it was considered manipulative and for the self-interest of the people involved in the church, that they worked in concert, and that their practices bordered on coercion. So they said that she could not prove that she was incapacitated for that time. They didn't find some of her testimony credible. They also traveled to Korea a bunch of times, but that Robert never traveled with them. And let's see, there was something else in here I wanted to tell you about. Okay, this is interesting. The evidence was uncontroverted. I don't know, what does that mean? Uncontroverted, that plaintiff and defendants engaged in a scheme involving a series of illegal wire transfers. What does uncontrovertibly mean? From Korea to the church to avoid and even evade paying taxes of a legitimate government Korea with respect to transfers. So it's not refuted. Okay. So it's not refuted that they engaged in a scheme involving a series of illegal wire transfers from Korea to the church to avoid and even evade paying taxes. So that's what the court finds. They also found that it was not appropriate.
She's having trouble reading.
Engaged in this scheme. The court says they all knew it was a scheme, which was not an appropriate way to transfer money, and that all of them engaged in this scheme. The court says they all knew it was a scheme to transfer money from the parents' accounts through these intermediaries in Korea to avoid taxes. So they found that they were doing something in a scheme, but that she was also part of it. So it's not disputed. Got it. So they were basically, the court found that they were doing illegal transfers to avoid paying taxes. So no criminal charges came out of that, but that's what the court found, and they said it was undisputed. The teachings of the way that the church worked of donating also were like, they found one of her motivations in that she deeply revered Robert Shin. Let me see. And then they went into the legal arguments of like how undue influence happens, and they just said that she did not meet these burdens. I just thought it was interesting that they said that they confirmed some of the things that they were talking about.
They confirmed some. Yeah. Oh, yeah, I just saw it there, yeah.
It says not all influence, or even though strong, is undue influence. That is term is used in gift litigation. Standing alone, sympathy, affection, friendship, attachment by sentiment or desire to gratify the wishes of ones who beloved, respected, or trusted, or blah blah blah. A person may suggest advice and give good reason.
What's blah blah blah? I've never seen blah 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 in a court document before. Hello, short order cook.
So they said that she was never physically taken away from any facility that was owned by them, never without a car or access to her friends or family. That she gave full financial authority to the defendants and made decisions of her own free will.
Yeah, I've not heard of I've never seen blah blah blah.
She never lived in any of the church properties except for a 2 to 3 month period when she lived with Catherine Key. She was sometimes alone with her own attorney when some of these transfers were being made. Statute of limitations was a huge problem because most of the transfers happened between later than 2006 and 2007. So she couldn't, after that, really meet the burden for the ones that happened before then.
Oh no.
There was no fraud in terms of concealing what happened. She knew exactly what was going on and consented with her own free will. This is not a situation where the plaintiff was in a residential compound or constantly under the coercion or a captive situation. She freely gave properties away. There was constitutional limitations because of the church. She said that it was the teachings of the church that led her to do these things.
Hang on a minute. So the judge said she did it of her own free will. Hello? Then everything you've been saying is wrong.
She alleged that Shin manipulated her and threatened judgment, hell, and other consequences if plaintiff and other church members did not obey the teaching, if they did not tithe, if they did not open up and be honest with God, if they did not honor God, and if they did not pass the money test of greed. Although the plaintiff claimed not to have free will, that her gifts were made under duress due to the fraud perpetuated by Shin and the church, the claims would necessarily require the court to examine an interpretation of the Bible on the subject of tithing, which was applied by Pastor Shin, and then make a determination on whether that interpretation rose to the level of undue influence. And it says the civil court is in no position to make a judicial determination of what is and not correct biblical interpretation. For instance, in considering the alleged plaintiff's fear, defendant's perceived threats, and public rebuke, a court would need to delve into the issues of whether such statements and conduct was an actual threat for them to donate or a literal interpretation of the Bible. So they don't want to get involved with the Bible. It's interesting because they're saying, like, they're not saying it didn't happen. They're just saying they can't make a determination. Or they're not saying anything either way.
So which means the court didn't back up her theory.
That's kind of the problem in situations like this.
Did the fox get timed out, did he?
They would not make any sort of inquiry into the will of God, open up with God, obey God, and whether or not it was actually like valid teachings. So at the end of the day, they confirmed some of the things, that there was monitoring, that people lived in housing, that they opened up their finances to the church.
People apparently lived in housing. Did you hear that? It was a fixated person's unit. Have a listen to what she said. Have a listen to what she says.
They confirmed some of the things, that there was monitoring, that people lived in housing.
Did you hear that? People lived in housing. It's actually people lived in housing.
That they opened up their finances to the church. But ultimately, because it was under a church, she couldn't, she was a true believer. And they said she wasn't brainwashed. It's so hard in cases like this because it's true. Physically, she probably didn't look anything of the sort.
How dare people live in housing?
She alleged that Shin manipulated her and threatened judgment. It's true. Physically, she probably didn't look anything.
Anyway, let's have a go. Oh, imagine people living in housing.
United States. But they did say that it was manipulative and bordering on coercion. And in the world of religion, unfortunately, this is kind of where we are in the state of the United States, which is why financial issues like this are hard to prove, and frequently why these types of groups only will get in trouble when bigger crimes are happening, or if they can actually prove like any sort of like conversion of funds of the church into business. Oh, there was something about the businesses in here I wanted to tell you too about working, because he had mentioned they mentioned in their statement that they were not connected to the church, and that it was all separate, and that he is a CEO of the church, but also CEO of the company. so this is what they wrote on the 4th page. It says, at the end of 1999, she testified that Pastor Shin's teaching emphasized giving, and that the more you give, the more you receive from God. That she kind of had a destiny to fund the gospel, and that to fund the gospel, we were going to set up big corporations, and everybody was going to work to make money. Pastor also taught that greed comes from evil, and that the church members should be open with God through their finances and free from money, and pass the money test. So they admit that he did set up corporations to fund the gospel. So the thing that I think is really bizarre about their statement today was that they said that there's people that are part of this that you don't have to be a church member to join. But every single one of the dancers that has been highlighted is a part of the church. So is that true? I mean, could someone that doesn't want to be a part of the church really become a member of 7M?
She keeps deleting. All right, I'm just going to turn this. I wanted to show you what I just got sent by Vidandra, because she got in people in-house shouldn't join classes. Well, for me, I'm not. She's not really. Right, here we go. This is. It says, look at the face. If 7M sues you, will you throw your sources, aka her mum, dad, and sister, under the bus, just like you did with Swanson? Or are you going to show us your journalist credentials that you don't have? Look at the face on her. Vidandra, no wonder you got banned and blocked. How dare you question? How dare you question? Okay, so again, shout out to Llama Girl for these videos. Okay, so here's the next one. She admits here. So far, I can't. Having them live in housing is not a crime.
Ultimately,
that face. She's just sitting there staring.
Ultimately, what would have to happen in a situation like this, I believe, is that if they're going to get into any sort of criminal sort of things, there would have to be crimes that are found either through the IRS, through tax evasion, or through money laundering, or through conversion of nonprofit funds to for-profit world. There's a lot of ways that you can do this. There's also, if there's been crimes against people that are worse in nature. In the United States, you're free to practice a religion, and that means that anyone that claims to be a pastor can say that this is what their interpretation of the Bible is, and if you believe them and follow that and give them money, the government will say that you're practicing your religion, and they're not going to want to get involved in that. Unfortunately, there's people that are, fortunately and unfortunately, there are good people that are in religion. There's actually a lot of good people that are in religion. There's a lot of religious organizations that, even though they've had a lot of like scandals and troubles, they also equally do a lot of good for the community and give back to the community. So you can't say that like every single religious organization is bad. It's just, there's always going to be people that are like in the system that are using it to their advantage. right now, I wouldn't know how to say what is happening because I don't really know the full scope. But like, if we were to base it based on what the judge would rule in this case, based on today, they would kind of, if the same claims were made, it would be, well, you're just practicing your religion. So the long story is you have to find other crimes that are happening.
Oh, so she knows how the court system works, Aldo. Really? So we're in Fox. We got surround sound at Fox's place and PA speakers at.
In the case of like Nexium, it would be, well, you're just practicing your religion. So the long story is you have to find other crimes that are happening. In the case of like Nexium, and I'm not comparing this to Nexium, I'm simply stating like in the case of Nexium, there was a lot of things happening similar to this, but ultimately the cult was taken down not because of that, but because of the sex crimes. So there's other ways and other crimes that happen. And if you think of it like with Warren Jeffs from the FLDS, that's another example. Like they all lived in a commune basically in Colorado City, Short Creek, in like on the border of Arizona and Colorado, and they lived and communed all of their money together. And technically, he dictated how that money was distributed throughout the group. Theoretically, you could say, yes, there was probably a level of coercion there because he's claiming to be a prophet, but then they're also following their religion, so they believe this, right? But how did they get him? Wasn't through the practice of the religion, but it was that he was raping 12-year-olds right? And marrying children. Arizona and Utah, sorry. So
she loves this topic.
Other crimes that are not based in the religious practice, and you're not. When it comes to crimes of sex and child exploitation, you don't get to hide behind religion for that.
She loves this topic.
Yeah, and sometimes what happens in these types of cases is because people are such diehard believers in the situation, you start to think like, well, they might, by the time they get out, there's nothing that they can do, and there's no way of getting you're past the statute of limitations. I think really the biggest issue is that you want to make sure that you're not falling for these kinds of promises. You want to make sure that you're not falling victim to someone telling you that they are the prophet, that they should be obeyed, or that full obedience is required. That you should have little warning signs up.
How much longer? I don't know, but I've got to be up early in the morning, so I won't be going long.
Want to have involved in your life. That wants to try to control all facets of your life is not someone that you might want to have involved in your life.
I don't know. I mean, if you cut out all the times where she's just sitting there, it could be over a lot quicker.
You can't also force someone to get out of a cult, but you can also put out information so that other people don't fall victim. And in the case of this situation, the biggest thing is that you don't want other young dancers getting roped into a situation where they might fall victim to being under a very controlling environment. So, but yes, I mean, you have to find actual crimes. You have to find crimes of tax evasion, money laundering. Sometimes these groups end up getting caught because of the way that they're structuring and not paying money or avoiding ways of paying taxes. I mean, there's lots of different ways that these organizations can come down.
She's running out of RAM.
Many of them were actually like in a church. Like, I don't know if any of the marriages were forced. I really don't know anything about the marriages.
The marriages are none of your business. She's running out of
But I think,
intelligence.
you know, I think there's always going to be people, even if you think that, like, if you think that everyone around you knows that what's happening is wrong, and then there's, like, other people that don't know that it's wrong. Like, look at how fast disinformation spreads on the internet. QAnon is false. They've already, like, they figured out that it was basically started by some guy in the Philippines. That's
So QAnon's false. So some of her, so's a lot of her information.
everything that they've said that is true has been false. Everything that they put out was false, and yet so many people got sucked into it believing it was true. And it's just important that you have a way to step outside of what you're watching and find other sources of information, so not every single person that you're listening to is the same thing.
That's why you can't listen to her.
I do find it curious that the church is invite only. I find it curious that they don't have very much of a public presence. I do find it curious that every single time something is found, they're deleting things. They're deleting, like, if you stand by your church and your worship music, why are you deleting your worship music? If you stand by your church and your belief systems, why is your church website private? And so, like, bare bones, if you stand by what your church is doing, why is it invite only? Why does there a gate around it? There's just a lot of, like,
why is there a gate around the church? I mean, Jehovah's Witnesses have big gates around theirs. A lot of places have gates around their churches because they block off the. They open the gate when the church is open. Why does a church have a door? Oh no, the church has a door. I'm being very sarcastic, I'm sorry.
Questionable things that most churches out front in this world don't do. They said that they're waiting to open to the public until their construction is complete. Interesting.
That's right, the fox, or breaking things, or dumping things. Stuff being dumped outside the churches is very popular, by the way, too.
I don't know. Westboro Church is, like, super, super small. Like 20 people, maybe 25 people, and it's all family members. It's a super, super small church. That's really why I've never looked at it, and they don't have a huge presence anymore. There's at this point, somebody asked, like, why don't I touch Scientology? To me, like, why would I touch Scientology when Leah and Mike are exposing the shit out of it every single day? Like, people know, if you want to learn about what Scientology is doing, all you have to do is watch Leah's show. You can watch all the different documentaries that have been made about Scientology. There's better people that can do it. Do you need someone besides Leah to expose them? Don't you think Leah, with her fame, is at pretty much the highest level you can get when your best friend is Jennifer Lopez? I mean, you really cannot get more famous than that. So you have the upper echelon of, like, celebrity exposing that. They have the platform they need. They've had the shows that they needed to expose. And I think that Leah does a really good job. And I respect her place. I respect her position. I respect all the work they've done. and she was on the inside, so she has the perspective of being a former member. Mike, having been like the public relations person, totally understands how Scientology works. Yeah, Leah does a good job. And then victims from the inside shared their stories. She did an episode on Jehovah's Witnesses. Kelly, why are you asking me a question about a post from 2019 that's tagged on Kelly's page?
Because she's talking about 2019.
I don't get it. Why do you keep asking that question? Is that like, are you trying to shame Kelly? I don't understand. Like, if it's a post from 2019, why would she delete it or remove it? They didn't know what was happening at that time.
But she's relying on old stuff. All right, here we go.
They also have posts where they say that they love James. Should they delete those now that they're in today's position? You don't really know what you don't know from years ago.
Hang on. You don't know what you... All right, here's another KJ quote. You don't know what you don't know from years ago. We need to put that in with our Russia isn't China, or China isn't Russia.
Say that they love James. Should they delete those now that they're in today's position? You don't really know what you don't know from years ago.
Got to write a book. Of Katie Joy-isms. That's right. You want to fight me, Luca? That's another one. She did, wasn't it?
And you know, if you think about it, it's kind of like the frustration that we've run up against with the IBLP. Like, think of all of the victims of Bill Gothard and all of the women that have accused him of sexual harassment or, you know, fondling or, you know, sexually inappropriate contact alleged. And think of how those victims have never gotten justice. They were never, no charges were ever filed. Their lawsuit ends up getting dropped because some of the things fall outside of the statute of limitations. Think of how, like, those guys are doing really atrocious things, and their teachings about rape and sex are so abusive, and yet nothing has actually come from those people. And it's just the really sick deviants within the group that end up getting arrested and charged, like Josh Duggar.
No.
Do you want more people to fall into a situation like this, or would you rather not? I guess marriage licenses are not online in the state of California, so I don't know. You'd actually have to, like, contact their county and then order a copy. And you can't just, like, order a copy of somebody else's marriage license in California.
So she's been trying to get marriage licenses. All right, so we're going to skip a few. All right, so, oh yeah, now here we go.
Well, you've got all these different outlets digging in and looking at the same stuff that I'm looking at. And everyone's sort of coming to the same conclusion that there's something not right here. I mean, nobody is getting more beat up than the Wilkins. And I think, like, I think one thing I would suggest, Dr. Grande did an analysis of the situation, and he's a mental health counselor. I think he has a PhD. I don't know that he's not a psychologist, but he is a mental health counselor. And he actually did an analysis of the situation.
Yes, he's a
And
mental
he,
health
at the end of this
counselor.
video, had
He's
some
not a
really good
psychologist. So technically, quick, put another coin in her. She keeps running out. Bella, you go do what you need to do urgently. It's a pretty good it's a pretty good group. And if I need to, I've got Ralph the Nightbot to help me if I need to. Well, Ralph the Nightbot's already working, but you know, if I need to, there's a couple of commands I can do so I can deal with him, work myself. Yeah.
About, you know, like how do you help someone get out of a cult? What are the warning signs of a cult? And he even explained how there's a lot of these groups that have gotten just so sophisticated that overtly they're doing horrible things. They're you know, some of these groups are led by narcissistic people that are very outright abusive in how they're treating people, but they're not
Narcissistic. Yes, we know she's in my opinion, she's describing herself.
not doing anything outwardly illegal. And so it's not illegal to be a fucking jerk, you know?
Which is probably a good thing for her.
So really the take home for him was, how do you avoid it? You have to be really mindful of what people are telling you. You have to not, you know, you have to put yourself in a situation where you're not being told it's all one thing and ignoring everything else, not abandon critical thinking. I think he said making sure that you remember what's happening out here in the world. And one thing that he made a really, really good point about that I thought was really valuable is just reminding these people like how much better it is out in the real world. Like there's a whole world out.
She's talking about the real world. But she doesn't leave her house.
Here where everyone loves you. You could have all kinds of success and so much freedom, and you could still be doing the same types of deals. You could still be with the same people and have the same friends, but you could do it under your own terms. You could actually find management that would allow you the freedom to explore your life and support you along the way, and also encourage you to have the same relationships with your friends and family. I think anyone that's trying to separate you from the people that you love and change who you fundamentally are, that's a warning sign. And so, you know, it's reminding someone that you have all these people out here that love you and that nothing was so scary out here. It wasn't that horrible. You know, you've been conditioned to believe that everyone is dangerous when they're really, in fact, not, you know?
Is she talking about herself?
I haven't had this like big moment with the Wilkins, and there's not like this connection where we speak or anything like that. I can only go off what people tell me about them. And I will say that like in any interaction that I've seen with their posts or any of their friends that I've talked to, it's all the same. Like they were a loving family that just really loved each other and were supportive of Miranda. And I don't think it's, in my opinion, the sign of a controlling parent, if they're truly controlling, would not be like, yes, you can move to California and have your own apartment and I'll help pay for you and I'll support your dreams and then I'll live in Michigan. I mean, think of how closely monitored Jim Bob Duggar is with his kids and how they don't get to move and how he doesn't want them to leave and he wants to have them underneath his control constantly, and how he has all the boys working for him and he wants everyone to still like go to him for everything. Like that's what a controlling narcissistic parent does, in my opinion. They control every aspect of someone's lives. They're certainly not saying, go move to Hollywood and I'll help you with an apartment and I'll.
So we know that she said that her son's going to be with her forever. So that's what she said, wasn't it? So yeah, she's talking about herself here. She's not going to let her son move out. She said that.
Support your dreams, you know? That's not a controlling parent. You can obviously have problems with your family. No family's perfect. All of us struggle in family relationships. No parent is perfect. every parent has lost their temper. I'm sure every parent has said things to their child that they regret. They could look back in time and do things differently, or maybe have made a different decision. And there is a point for a lot of people, I think, that when you enter into certain place in your 20s, there is that push for wanting to become uniquely who you are, separate from your family. And that is a normal part of growing up. But this was such a drastic change. And that was really the point that Dr. Grande made, was that when something drastically changes very fast and it happens to coincide with involving oneself in a group, that's really when you want to have your alert up.
This is about when I clicked off as I thought washing my floor.
And I think you just don't ignore the voices of other people that have spoken out. You don't ignore the people that have said things. But again, like, I'm used to being threatened. I think the one thing I will say about, they said, oh, she's sued constantly. Okay. So I was sued by a woman named Tati Westbrook, and that case actually was dismissed in the court. And
no, it wasn't. It was settled.
It was dismissed because she sued me in the wrong city or the wrong jurisdiction. And then she was going to come to the right jurisdiction, but by the time she came to my jurisdiction, we had counterclaims against her. And so instead of litigating of her suing me and me suing her, we did mediation. And through the mediation, we learned that I did not defame anyone. So, you know, that's part of litigation, is very expensive.
As Lama Girl says, she hasn't mentioned that she gave up her source. She had to give up her source.
And sometimes people sue you. It's unfortunately part of. I actually just got off the phone earlier, this week, with someone from a major outlet, and they're being sued along with their entire publication for defamation for a piece they did about a huge guy that's part of some huge podcast. So journalists getting sued, or reporters getting sued, bloggers getting sued, that's kind of one with the territory.
Oh, dear me. You didn't tell, obviously, with Peter, you didn't stay for the comedy part. That's just got good. Oh, she says, I've never seen someone stick their tongue out to drink from a straw.
Lawsuit goes into very vast details of a dispute that he has with his daughter, and that dispute was something that she shared on Dr. Phil, to which I reported on. And beyond that, there's really nothing. There's no basis for what he's claiming, and he's also partly, her allegations against him had to do with a criminal indictment that he's still facing. So he is he's going to court in May, and he's facing a 12-count indictment. I don't believe all 12 counts are charged against him, because there's 3 people that were indicted together. So the full indictment is 12 counts, and it's a vast variety of crimes, from wire fraud to bank fraud to tax evasion, conspiracy to defraud the United States. There's a contempt or the obstruction charge, but for one of them, not Todd. So, he's got his criminal trial in May. And all of that is he's innocent until proven guilty. He was just re-indicted. That's kind of where they're at with that. But we did file a motion to dismiss because I don't think he's got any grounds for it. And the courts in Minnesota are extremely backed up. I don't know what is going on with this Teen Mom fans page. I don't know this person. I don't speak to them. I don't know why they would sue me, being that I haven't talked to them in like years. I certainly didn't. They posted something like I talked about them in a court filing. We haven't even filed any records, so I don't know what court filing her name would have been brought up in, and I don't even know what their name is. So again, I wouldn't know how her name got brought up in a court filing. I think that what happened in that case is someone told her, or whoever's behind it, whether it's a guy or a girl, they told this person that this happened, and maybe they're indirectly admitting, like indirectly like believing that. But I certainly don't have. I don't know what do you sue someone from an Instagram page for?
Defamation. One. Well, so it's going in. A lot of this comes from the state case was dropped. But she never mentions his suit goes against. I thought it was coming up in April.
She's really been mad at me lately, which is weird. Like, I don't even talk to her. I don't know. The best thing I can tell people is like, don't let trolls like tell you that something's happened. Fact check the stuff that you're being told by people. That's a good thing. Good place to start. And yeah, I think she posted that there was like 2 new lawsuits. No. There was somebody that tried to do something to me, but it didn't work. And their attempt to do this was actually denied by the court. And I never even responded. I never even knew that it was happening. And the court said that there was no grounds for what they claimed. So I found out after they did something. I'm not going to say who or what. It's nobody's business. I think they might be talking about that,
But you've just told the whole world. Oh, her Instagram. It's nobody's business, but you've opened your mouth.
Actually, nothing happened in that. I just got a letter in the mail and they said this was denied. And I was like, okay. I just don't email, or I don't ever go over on my Facebook account. So that's probably why the trolls are all over there. Yeah, honestly, I got something in the mail. It said, that there was a filing that was made, but it was denied by the court. Their relief was denied by the court. And they requested a hearing, which was yesterday, which I didn't go to because I was like, there's no need for this to even be litigated.
Didn't she just say that she didn't find out until after it was done? So she's changed her story.
And it happened yesterday morning. I didn't respond to it under the advice of my legal team. They said I didn't have to go because it had already been denied and it would be up to them to prove. So again, nobody came to my house and gave me anything.
Nobody came to her house.
I never even go on to Facebook. They're over on Facebook because I think that that's like where they can influence people, but Facebook isn't really used as much anymore by anyone. In this line of work, you can't really control what people do.
This line of work?
Oh, so that was another thing. Someone was posting photographs of my house because I think the photographs were on like Zillow or something, and they were like, "Oh, look at Katie's house." And then they were saying that like my husband was driving the lawnmower. That was actually not my husband. We don't have a riding lawnmower. And if you noticed in the pictures, that was like right after our sod had been laid, and that's why I took that picture, because we had just moved in and they just laid the sod. And you actually don't mow when you first lay new grass for like, I don't even remember, like a week, maybe 2 weeks. I can't remember. You had to let it sit and actually grow and like take hold before you're mowing it. So because it's like in pads and it can like just roll back up. So that was the same day that the lawn had been laid, and you can see how there's you can actually tell that they had just laid it. I think it's my next door neighbor, actually. I didn't even notice him, but that was definitely not. Yeah, it has to take root first. Thank you, Lacey. So you can't, I just remember we had to water it like every single day. We had to water it multiple times a day, and we didn't mow it for a couple weeks. And I think it was my next door neighbor, who is an amazing guy, super nice guy. Leave him alone. There's no reason to go after him.
No one's good.
I live in a really weird corner, so I've got like 5 neighbors that are like, because our backyards are all connected. And I live like the first house on the block. So I have one neighbor here, and then one here, and then one here, and then one here. And then all of our lots are connected. And sometimes we're like overlapping in our mowing, but we don't have a riding lawnmower. We don't have that big of a yard. Our next door neighbor has like half an acre. He's got a bigger yard. We don't have that big of a yard. So the people that have bigger lots have riding lawnmowers. We don't. And my husband doesn't want one. He kept saying, I said, you should get one. He says, no, I don't want one. I like to like actually walk and mow.
I know it is, Angel, isn't it?
We do have some neighbors that have trump legs. It's whatever. It's the United States of America. You can put out whatever you want out on your lawn. You can support whoever you want to support.
We're not going to get
No, those are photographs that I think I placed on Zillow or because for the longest time when you would go to Google Earth, I think my lot still looks empty. It's been almost 10 years that we've lived here.
So she put the photos up herself.
That we've lived here.
Yeah, this is riveting, isn't it? Oh, look at this one. Look at the yawn. And hair. Oh, all right, we'll do this one.
Is it windy out? I haven't been outside today.
She hasn't been outside yet. She's talking about the real world before.
I'm pretty surprised that Claire Duggar isn't pregnant yet. I'm not upset. I'm not at all.
No.
I was tired. I'm really tired.
Well, get
I'm
off.
really tired.
Go to bed.
Contrary to popular belief, I've actually worked less this month on YouTube than I've worked any other month in a long time.
Which means she got less money.
You have those tree pics in black and white. It's like, it says Katie plus Todd, and it has our wedding date on it. I don't know what your anniversary is. That's wood. Whatever that is. Claire and Dustin blocked everyone. I've never even commented on any of their stuff, and they had me blocked. They blocked a bunch of bloggers right off the bat.
Oh, now she's a blogger.
That's another weird thing is the Duggar Bates confession page.
It's interesting. Now she says they've blocked a whole heap of bloggers, including her. So now she's a blogger.
Well, that's another weird thing is the Duggar Bates confession page. I think it's really weird that they're always posting confessions about me. It's so funny. It's like, what do I have to do with the Bates and the Duggars outside of the fact that I report on them? I mean, why aren't there confessions about the Hollywood gossip on there? They're literally report. If you go to the Hollywood gossip, by the way, they report on them like multiple times a day. I bet you there are thousands of reports on the Duggars on that blog. And I like the Hollywood gossip. Some of the stuff isn't always like verified or whatever, but I just think it's weird that they post confessions about how I'm a horrible person, and I'm like, okay, that's so. Who are the people that are running these pages? Like, why do you need to like shun another or like be negative about another page? I actually think that page has really good content. Like, I think some of the confessions are hilarious. Some of them are are mean, but I think some of them are funny.
Okay, then right, we nearly finished. Yeah. Oh, look at the face. Look at the face. Is that, we call that the stunned mullet face, don't we? The stunned mullet.
So I stopped following them. I was reading that Ukraine has been inundated with missionaries, and it's just making things worse. Like, or it's just making people unhappy. I saw something about that on Twitter. Jill Rodriguez. Oh my goodness. She's a mess. Jill Rodriguez is a mess. A freaking mess. I haven't said anything about Aubrey.
Just don't cross the wires. Talking about mullets, have you seen the mullets back?
She likes green eyeliner. Jill Duggar's having a baby boy. Aubrey Fisher is one of the dancers. Whatever the dancers say, you just have to kind of remember, like, we don't know where it's coming from. I don't know why everyone is saying that Kalia is missing. She's not missing. That's, like, not true. I mean, like, I will not put out stuff that's just factually not true. And like, claiming that she's missing isn't true. And there was another post about the addresses that wasn't accurate that I responded to. They use one they seem to use a single address in Santa Ana for a lot of their businesses. And
Okay, I've just about had enough. So Josh Duggar's sentence has been delayed. Oh, apparently she's not using a filter.
Coast. I'm not totally sure. I know he had been teaching in New York. I think if you go to like his old profiles, I think they're Catholic. His family's Catholic. I don't know like what his story is. I originally thought that he was the first one that was introduced to the group, but that's actually not true. It was James that was the first one that was introduced, and I think a bunch of them lived with Matt Stepanina. And it was while they were living with Matt, I think some of this happened. But Matt is actually not involved in this at all. The first wife has not spoken out. James's first wife did. I'm not sure what is going on with Isaiah. They're not, I don't think they're actually involved anymore. I don't really know. All right, so I'm going to go, but I just wanted to share that document from the court records from September 29th, 2011. And yes, I will post this live. I hope you guys have a good day.
I will now.
I don't have a filter this time. So stay safe out there. If someone tells you they're a prophet from God and that you should obey them. No, Tight Eyes is not James. His name is Cesare. It looks like Caesar, but I think it's Cesare. James is B dash.
A quick one, yeah. I want to
I am not angry. All right, everyone. He was.
Yeah, that was. A quick subject, yeah, because I need to head off myself because I am tired and I've been going for nearly an hour and a half. So thank you to Llama Girl. Make sure that you go and subscribe to her Twitter, and also you can buy her a coffee. Let me pull up her buy a coffee page, and you can buy Llama Girl coffee if you want to support her for what she does. I did fact check, but they use one source. Okay. So here's Llama Girl if you want to support her for what she does with getting all the videos. So yeah, I've got to have an early start because I've got to take my daughter somewhere early in the morning. So I need to probably head off to bed. All right, so I'm going to thank you all for joining me. And you did fact check, but they use one source. I'll have to look into that a little bit closer. Yeah, I'll speak to you soon. Make sure that you hit like and subscribe. I think I made it a subscribers only feed anyway, just for a little bit of fun, just to see what would happen. Anyway, so thank you all for joining me, and I'll catch you again next time.